Hello ladies and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Jax and this is where I have been sharing our journey through infertility, IVF, adoption, parenting, and now pregnancy. This week is my 31-week pregnancy update, and the big thing that happened this week is our hospital tour, but I've also been practicing my spitting babies, exercises, and I have a funny manager robot story for you. Let's kick it off with the baby update like we always do. Baby Kingsley should be around the size of a small clawed otter this week, which is putting him around 16 inches long and weighing in somewhere between 3.5 and 4 pounds. This week, his sense of taste is coming online, and that is important because he is tasting the amniotic fluid, and your amniotic fluid does change and taste different based on what you eat. This week, his lungs are also coming online. They can inflate properly at this point. So if he was born, his lungs do have the ability to function or inflate, which is a really big milestone. And it also is why babies at 31 weeks have a 95% survival rate compared to full-term babies, because almost everything is just online, just small and a little underdeveloped, but otherwise pretty much functional. On to the mama update. This week I am weighing in at 159.7-ish, which puts me a little above 11 pounds gained, which gets me back on track. We'd kind of fallen off there for a minute last week, and I thought I'd take a minute. I don't know if I've ever explained this graph to you guys, but essentially these trend lines, the bottom of the red zone would be a 15-pound weight gain. The middle would be around 20, which would be healthy for me because I was at the top end of a healthy weight range when we started this pregnancy. And the top of the graph would be a 25-pound weight gain, which is honestly what my OB recommended. But I saw her around 8 or 10 weeks, and you can look at the graph and see I was down quite a bit of weight by then. So really what we're shooting for is somewhere in the middle to the top of that graph would be a healthy weight gain for this pregnancy. With that, my belly has grown a little bit. It's at 32.5 inches at the longest way around. And it's definitely different. When I look down, obviously that's my most common perspective. When I look down, before, I couldn't see my belly button, and now I can because the bottom of my stomach is coming out more than the top. So definitely some shift down. And I don't know if that's just a shift in baby getting bigger, or just those ligaments getting more stretched out, so there's more give down at the bottom now. But there's definitely a different shape going on. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it in the bump shots, but I'll throw them in now. This is what it'll look like from the side. Dress on. From the front. Then whoosh. From the front. From the side. Definitely, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the widest part has definitely shifted down, which made me suspicious that maybe he had turned, but all the movements are in the same spot. Who's that? Oh my gosh, between the air conditioning and the dog, this is going to be great audio. But yeah, you can see, still got that divot there. You can really tell when the light hits it like that, right? Got my little fuzzy line going on there, but otherwise no stretch marks that I can see. This is always when I check for my stretch marks. Huge veins. You can see the veins coming up either side, but that's just because my skin's so pale and stretched. Otherwise, still looking good. Definitely a little bigger. Another reason that I'm wondering if it isn't just the ligaments changing, giving me kind of a different shape, is because I have been doing my spinning baby exercises. I mentioned that my doula came, or she was coming right at the beginning of this week, and she showed me several different exercises, and you definitely need a partner to help you spot those exercises, because one of them you're over the side of the bed, and I'm I'd be gone. I'd be just on the floor if he wasn't there to pick me back up. But they really do help stretch out your stomach and those ligaments, so they feel really good. But you definitely need someone to help. And I did feel Kingsley shift a little bit, especially around the middle of this week. he was definitely lying like sideways or a weird angle I'd never felt him at. And so I was so hopeful that he flipped. And I have to say the last 2 days of this week, I was just like, oh, it's back to normal, where clearly he's butt down, facing my spine, kicking the back of me. That's where I feel him the most, is like kicking my spine in that back area. And then every once in a while, kind of to the side. Definitely favoring my left side. But that's the most common places for me to feel him, and he kind of went back to that. So we have our 32-week scan coming up, and I'm not expecting I'm not expecting a miracle out of that one. So we'll see what happens. The big event of this week was our hospital tour. And I have to start this off by saying the gal who did it was spot on perfect for the job. I'm sure she's been doing this forever, but it was just the right amount of small talk. She clearly knew the paperwork she was going through, and she was just like cheery and bubbly the whole time. But it was nice to have someone that instilled confidence for this whole thing. But here, what are some highlights? Oh, I think I've mentioned this before, but this facility, while farther away than my OB's main hospital, is newer. So it's newer in an area of town that's developing out more. So it's a little bit slower. There's not as many beds, not as many people going there, but the rooms, oh my gosh, could you tell that they were freshly renovated? They were so pretty. They were so pretty and really, really big, which is nice because when I inquired about COVID policies, they said you still are more or less confined to your room. They don't, like, your support people can leave and go away to get food or go home or whatever, but you're not allowed to just wander the hallways or even go like into the ice and vending machine room. Like, they want a nurse to go do that for you. So I was glad there was enough room to at least pace back and forth a good ways in the room. What else about COVID policies? They're up to 2 guests now, or support people, which for me is obviously the husband and my doula, which is nice because for a while there you were getting exceptions for your doula. And while not many hospitals turned you down, it was still like another thing you had to worry about. So I'm glad it's up to 2. No masks on while you're in the room. They said to keep them handy in case different people of staff come in. But otherwise, once you're in your room, you're good to go. And the coordinator who was giving us this tour was pretty darn optimistic. The case rate of COVID in our county is really declining and staying down, and especially hospitalizations and deaths are way, way down. So we're definitely kind of succeeding in our county of keeping it down, which is allowing these lifts and policies throughout our hospital. So she was really kind of positive that in another 2 months, like, things might be even better, which was good to hear. I was a little worried the hospitals were going to be really slow to react, and I get being cautious, but I thought like they might just like leave policies in place for months and months and months just in case. But I'm glad they're reacting to the data that we have for our county. Next, we saw the recovery rooms, which were really nice. They looked like they were meant to be lived in. Our experience, obviously, with Evangeline's a little bit different, but we were not in a room with her that was really meant to be lived in at all. It was an older hospital and a smaller hospital and whatever, but it was hard to live in that room for 3 days. These rooms looked like they were meant to be actually lived in and care for a newborn, and that they put some thought into it for the parents to not absolutely hate being there, which was really nice, and I appreciated that. I also appreciated that in the hallways of the recovery ward were these sound sensors, and I've never seen them in a hospital before, but I thought, what a wonderful idea. There are these LED screens placed like every 20 feet in the hallways, and if it's too loud in the hallways, they light up bright red so that the nurses or the staff or whoever's walking through a hallway know to shut up. Because you're in a recovery ward for people who just gave birth and have newborns. Like, people are sleeping around the clock, so it makes sense to be quiet. And I really loved that idea as well. A part of like why I hated the time that we spent in the hospital with Evie was because it was so hard to sleep and people were chatting so loudly and kept all the lights on all the time. And I was just like, this is not meant to be lived in. What are you doing here? So I appreciated that they put that thought into that ward as well. She was actually, the coordinator that was giving us the tour was actually really knowledgeable. She answered most of my questions along the way. Like, I asked her some of the COVID stuff personally, and then I also asked her about capacity and how often they're hitting it. And she said that in the few years that they've been running, that she's only really heard of them hitting capacity and having to move scheduled inductions about 5 times. And she says it's not even like a bed capacity issue, it's merely staff, because inductions are a one-on-one affair. A nurse pretty much just monitors you alone, and that's the only reason. So she says if we have, 5 people that are close to, giving birth and 5 people that have already been induced, like it just turns into a staff problem rather than a bed problem. And they'll have you, wait 12 hours to come in so that, they have more beds, more staff to deal with that. So that was encouraging as well, because I know the other hospital is so busy and runs at capacity quite a bit. And finally, my manager robot story. So I haven't regaled you with every interaction, but I just want to set the tone that every interaction has just been some variation of kind of weird and awkward. Not bad, I'm not reporting him to HR or anything like that. It's just been really weird. But this one made me smile afterwards. I was just kind of WTF just happened. But we had just had our normal weekly one-on-one. And so we'd been talking about work stuff. And I think I'd mentioned I was uncomfortable once because of the baby, but that was earlier in the conversation when we talked about work stuff. And then I had got done with my updates and it was his turn. And he's like, can you remind me of the timeline again? And in my mind, I'm like, timeline? For what? We had just got done talking about all my projects. Timeline. And then it dawned on me, oh, is he talking about the pregnancy? So I totally went out on a limb and was just like, I'm due on May 28th? We're still looking at May for delivery? Question mark? He's like, oh, okay, yeah. And for, returning to work when that, and it's like, we've talked about this so many times, by the way, ladies, just so many times. I was like, please write it down. Thanks. And he's like, so do we need to engage HR or I was like, yeah, eventually. Here, I'll send you our policy, our PDF of our maternity leave policy for FY22. He's like, yes, good, whatever. It's just how? I get you don't deal with this a lot. I get I'm the only woman of childbearing years on your team or whatever. But after you get caught off guard that first meeting, wouldn't you go educate yourself? It's fine. He's being really lenient with appointments and stuff like that. It's not a hindrance. It's just kind of weird because with my last boss, she was just really supportive. And when I think I transitioned even to a new boss while I was on leave, and they were really nice. So it was just really weird. This whole interaction's been weird. And after that thing, I'm like, what's the timeline? This is a project I'm on. It was just so manager robot. I could not share. It was a very manager robot moment. Okay, let's see. Family update. Not a whole lot. The husband's still been really busy, really working overtime. But we were on a drive somewhere, and out of the blue, he's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have 2 under 2. What were we thinking? And I was like, that. I've been saying that for months now. And we, every once in a while, we go back joking, why did you let me do this? Why did you do this? I was like, we both signed the papers, honey. There's no blaming one of us over the other. There's paperwork to prove we both bought into this situation. But I was just I went baby crazy, I think is what happened. And then I was worried IVF wouldn't work. And that's how we ended up with this game plan to have 2 under 2. That's what happened. So it was just precious because it's finally settling in for him. And especially as we start talking, he's talking to me about work deadlines. And I'm like, yeah, so remember, you can't have all these scary big deadlines in May. We might have a baby. So that's really hitting him, that now he has to loop in more of his managers and project leads and stuff to actually coordinate it. It's more real. So that's been exciting that we're both kind of in the home stretch. I'm so excited. 160 days. Very excited. All right, that was week 31's update. Stick around week 32. I have my anatomy scan, so we'll see how big little baby Kingsley has gotten and if I'm right thinking that he hasn't turned. And otherwise, ladies, keep on fighting.